The sun killed the world twice. First with fire, then with silence. The great flare tore through the sky like a god's whip, frying circuits and melting cities into glassy scars. Satellites fell, burning feathers from a shotgun dove. Governments crumbled with the grids that fed them. But the real death came after. When the last battery died, the last radio crackled into stillness, and humanity learned what it meant to truly be alone. They rebuilt, of course. They always do. Coal and steam replaced silicon. Diesel engines growled where microchips once hummed. Scavengers crawled through the bones of the old world, trading relics for water filters and bullets. But the past never stays buried. Pre-flare tech became myth, then religion. A functional relic could buy a town's loyalty, or a warlord's wrath. Vorik understood this. He carved his empire from scrap and spine, enslaving engineers to forge weapons from the carcasses of dead satellites. His hunters stalked the wastes, sniffing out signals from forgotten bunkers, dragging dissenters into his blood coal mines. The survivors whispered warnings. Touch a relic, and Vorik's hounds will taste your shadow. But hunger makes fools of saints. Some still risked the dunes, lured by stories of vaults stocked with fusion cores and fusion hope. They didn't know the oldest truth, that the flare didn't just burn the world. It left something behind, a pulse, buried deep in the earth's crust, humming a song only the desperate could hear. A song that promised salvation or slaughter. Chapter 1. The sun hung low and bloated, a dying ember searing the skyline. Taryn wiped grit from his goggles with a grease-stained rag, the fabric scratchier than the scabs on his knuckles. Below the cliff where his diesel rig idled, the ruins of a pre-flare bunker jutted from the dunes like a broken ribcage. Worthless, most scavengers would say, picked clean decades ago. But Taryn's brother had sworn there were bones here worth digging up. Always the dreamer. That one. Even as the memory curdled, Taryn shouldered his pickaxe and descended. Sand hissed against his boots, the wind carrying the reek of burnt coal from some far-off convoy. The bunker's entrance was a jagged mouth of twisted rebar, half buried. Inside, the air tasted of rust and stale radiation. He lit a magnesium torch. Its blue-white glare cut shadows into the walls. Skeletons in rotted uniforms slumped over ancient terminals, fingers still curled around rusted pistols. Suicides, the flare's first victims, too soft to face the slow rot afterward. Taryn's pickaxe bit into a sealed vault door, the clang echoing like a funeral bell. When the door gave way, the room beyond was a tomb of dead screens and cracked databanks. But there, beneath a drift of ash, a faint green light pulsed, a GPS relic, its casing scuffed but intact. Taryn's breath hitched. Functional tech was a death warrant. Vorik's hunters sniffed out signals like jackals. But this was a vault's weight in water credits. He traced the coordinates on the screen. Brother, you mad bastard. You were right. A sound split the silence. The grind of steel on stone. Taryn spun, torch raised. A figure stood in the vault doorway, backlit by the hellish glow of the outside sun. A woman, her face obscured by a welding mask, her coat patched with scorch marks and faded hazard symbols. A long-barreled crossbow hung loose in her grip, its coal canister glowing faintly. "Drop the relic," she said. Her voice was flint wrapped in velvet, the kind that left cuts if you pressed too close. Taryn's fingers tightened around the GPS. "You're not a hunter. Vorik's dogs don't ask. I'm worse." She stepped forward, the crossbow rising. "I'm the one who built their toys." The torchlight caught the scars on her wrists, puckered, deliberate burns. A traitor's brand. Engineers who failed Vorik got collared or corpse-piled. So she ran. Taryn edged toward a crumbling terminal, calculating. His rig's engine still growled atop the cliff, If he could draw her into the open, he lunged, hurling the torch at her head. She ducked, crossbow hissing as it discharged. A searing bolt grazed his shoulder, embedding in the wall behind him. He bolted for the bunker's mouth. GPS clutched to his chest. Sunlight blinded him as he burst outside. But the rig was there, its iron-plated hull shimmering with heat. The engine roared as he slammed the accelerator. Sand spewed beneath the wheels. In the rearview mirror, the woman emerged, crossbow discarded. She swung onto a single-wheeled motorcycle cobbled from turbine parts, its exhaust vomiting black smoke. The chase carved scars across the wastes. Taryn wove through mazes, the rig's suspension screaming. She gained, relentless, her bike chewing through dunes. He thumbed the dash's cracked ignition switch, engaging the auxiliary boiler. Pressurized steam shrieked from the rig's flank vents, blasting a curtain of grit. Her bike swerved, nearly overturning. When the fuel gauge dipped red, Taryn veered into a canyon strewn with skeletal rigs, a graveyard of old convoy wars. He killed the engine, slid beneath the chassis with a wrench in hand. Let her come, she did. Her boots crunched gravel as she dismounted, a pressure gauge dagger gleaming in her belt. Taryn lunged, tackling her into the sand. They rolled, a tangle of fists and fury. She fought like a feral thing, all elbows and teeth, but he pinned her, wrench pressed to her throat. "Give me one reason not to crack your skull," he hissed. Her mask had slipped. Up close, her face was all sharp angles and sunburned skin, eyes the gray of storm-smothered steel. "Because Vorik's tracking you now," she spat. "That relic's a beacon. You triggered it the moment you powered up." A low drone hummed in the distance. Taryn froze. "Hunters." She head-butted him, wrenched free, and sprinted for her bike. He stumbled after her, blood hot in his mouth. The drone became a roar. 3 armored trucks crested the canyon, their hulls welded with jagged scrap, mounted rotary saws screaming. Vorik's sigil, a black sun, was branded into their doors. Taryn's rig was dead, the bike too far. The woman yanked him behind a rusted fuel tanker, as gunfire shredded the air. "You're Seris," he realized. The engineer who'd torched Vorik's depot at Redwater. Story said she'd melted her own skin to destroy the schematics. "And you're a fool." She reloaded her crossbow with trembling hands. "That GPS leads to fusion cores. Vorik turns them into bombs. We're all cinders." A hunter's sawblade bit into the tanker, sparks raining down. Taryn's mind raced. His brother's face, the way he'd grinned before riding off to die. "Someone's got to fight." "Your rig's got a steam cannon," Seris said suddenly. Mach 3rd Browning. "If the chassis is original." Pressure valves shot. She tossed him a bolt wrench. "Fix it. I'll buy time." He wanted to ask why she'd trust him. Instead he ran. The cannon was rusted, its pipes brittle. Taryn hammered the valve seal, hands steady despite the gunfire. Seris's crossbow thumped rhythmically, each shot followed by a hunter's scream. When the cannon hissed alive, he aimed blind. The blast tore through the lid truck, boiling its crew alive. Seris leapt onto the bike as the remaining hunters retreated, their engines wailing. Night fell like a shroud. They didn't speak until the rig was hidden in a shale gully, its boiler cooling. Seris crouched by the fire, stitching her arm with a needle and diesel-soaked thread. Taryn studied the GPS's coordinates, a blinking curse. "You could have left me to them," he said. She didn't look up. "I need you alive to find the armory. After that I burn it. And if I want to sell it, then I'll kill you." Her voice was matter-of-fact, a surgeon stating prognosis. "But you won't. You've got ghosts in your teeth, Scavenger. They chew louder than greed." He almost laughed. The fire popped, embers swirling like dying stars. Somewhere, a coyote howled. It might have been a man. "We split the cores," he said. "Enough to barter. Enough to burn. Seris tilted her head, the flames painting her face in fractures. One condition, when the time comes, you don't hesitate. He knew what she meant. To destroy it all. To choose the knife over the coin. The GPS blinked between them. A heartbeat. Deal. He lied. Chapter 2. The shale gully became a tomb of whispers. Taryn dreamed of his brother again. Not as he'd last seen him, hollow-eyed and bleeding out in the sand, but as a boy, grinning beneath a makeshift crown of copper wire. "We'll build a city here," the ghost said, pointing to the cracked earth, with towers that scraped the stars. Taryn woke with ash in his throat, the GPS's green pulse seeping through his pack like a sickly heartbeat. Seris was already gone, her bedroll cold. He found her atop a nearby ridge, silhouetted against the dawn's bruised purple bleed, her hands steady as she calibrated a sextant scavenged from the rig's carcass. "Due west," she said, not turning. "The armory's buried under the salt flats. Vorik's drones patrol there. Radiations chewed through the old containment fields." Taryn squinted at the horizon, where the sky fused with the earth in a haze of alkali dust. "You've been there. I designed the security grid, back when I thought Vorik wanted to protect survivors." Her laugh was a dry rasp. "Stupid, isn't it? Believing a warlord could have a heart." They drove in silence, the rig's wheels churning up ochre plumes. Seris hunched over the GPS, her fingers dancing across its screen like a pianist's, rerouting power from non-essential systems. Taryn watched her from the corner of his eye, the way she bit her lip when concentrating, the faint tremor in her left hand, a relic of some old injury. She was a puzzle welded from shrapnel and secrets, and it unsettled him how often he caught himself trying to fit the pieces together. The salt flats were a cracked mirror, stretching to oblivion. What little life remained here was mutated, grotesque, thorned cacti oozing black sap, translucent lizards skittering over crystalline dunes. Seris rigged a Geiger counter from the rig's radio, its needle shuddering near dead zones. When the first drone appeared, a skeletal thing with rusted rotors, she yanked Taryn into a fissure, their bodies pressed against jagged salt walls. The drone's spotlight swept over them, its hum like the buzz of carrion flies. "They're keyed to body heat," she breathed, her voice barely audible. "Don't move." Taryn's pulse roared in his ears. Her back was against his chest, her hair smelling of coal smoke and burnt solder. He wondered if she felt the irony. Two predators frozen in a ditch, prey to their own creations. The drone lingered, its camera lens glinting, then veered east. "Vorik's losing patience," she muttered, peeling away from him. He wouldn't risk drones unless the armory's close. They found it by midnight, a concrete monolith half swallowed by the flats, its surface pocked with corrosion. The entrance was a yawning airlock, its gears frozen with age. Seris pried open a maintenance panel, her dagger sparking against frayed wires. "The grid's still active. Once we trip it, every hunter in the wastes will come running." Taryn crouched beside her, wiping salt from his goggles. "You said you could disarm it." "I can, but it'll take time." She hesitated, her gaze cutting to him. "You'll need to guard the perimeter, alone." He almost smiled. "Testing me. And if I run, you won't." She said it with the certainty of a sniper's aim. "You're not your brother, but you're close enough." The words hung between them, sharp as a tripwire. Taryn stood, slinging his rifle over his shoulder. "Don't take all night, engineer." The drones came first, a swarm of them, their rotors slicing the air into a fevered scream. Taryn crouched behind the rig's steam cannon, its boiler hissing as it built pressure. The first blast tore through 3 drones, their debris raining down in molten shards. The second shot misfired, scalding his forearm. He cursed, retreating to the airlock, as the remaining drones descended like vultures. Inside, Seris was a shadow in the flicker of emergency lights, her hands buried in the guts of a terminal. Sparks danced around her, casting hellish patterns on the walls. 10 minutes, she shouted. We don't have 10. He slammed the airlock controls, sealing them in. The drone's thudding impacts reverberated through the steel. She didn't flinch. Then buy me 5. The armory's heart was a cathedral of death. Rows of dormant fusion cores glowed faintly in their cradles, their hum a subsonic dirge. Taryn's boots echoed on the grated floor as he raced to the security hub. His brother's face flashed in his mind, begging him to stay behind, to let the heroes die alone. The memory fueled his steps. He rerouted power to the external turrets, their barrels whirring to life. Through cracked monitors, he watched the drones explode in bursts of blue flame. But the victory was short-lived. A new sound shook the walls, the grind of treads on salt. Vorik's mechs, spider-legged monstrosities fueled by blood coal, scuttled into view, their saw blades screeching. Seris, almost. The airlock shuddered. A mech's plasma torch bit through the steel, painting the room in molten orange. Taryn fired his rifle uselessly at the breach. Seris lunged past him, her hands clawing at the terminal. Got it. The cores are destabilizing. We have 20 minutes before detonation. He stared at her. You rigged them to blow. That was the plan. You wanted to save people. She grabbed his arm, dragging him toward a ventilation shaft. This is how. They crawled through the shaft's suffocating dark, the mech's saws gnashing below. Seris's breaths came in ragged bursts, her body trembling against his. When they emerged into the moonlit wastes, the armory was already burning, its core meltdown painting the sky in auroral greens. Vorik's mechs retreated, their handlers screaming orders. Taryn collapsed against a salt ridge, his lungs raw. You lied. You never planned to split the cores. Seris leaned beside him, her face streaked with soot and sweat. Would you have agreed if I'd told you? He wanted to hate her, but the truth coiled in his gut, venomous and undeniable. He'd have done the same. Survival demanded betrayal. Yet here they were, alive. Vorik will retaliate, she said quietly. He'll target the water mines next. Taryn watched the flames devour the armory. Somewhere in that inferno, his brother's ghost finally fell silent. Then we hit him first. Seris studied him, her eyes reflecting the fire. For a heartbeat he thought she might smile. Instead she tossed him a fusion core fragment, a jagged shard still crackling with energy. For luck, she said. They walked back to the rig, the distance between them a fraction narrower than before. Chapter 3. The stronghold rose from the wastes, like a scabbed-over wound, its walls forged from jagged iron, and the bones of dead rigs. Vorik's sigil, a black sun eaten through by rust, loomed above the gates, its edges serrated to catch the wind and wail. Taryn crouched behind a ridge of fossilized shale, the fusion core shard burning a hole in his pocket. Seris lay beside him, her breath fogging the lens of her welding mask as she scribbled calculations on a strip of salvaged parchment. The numbers were a language he couldn't parse, but he recognized the tension in her shoulders, the way her pencil dug into the paper as if exorcising ghosts. She's counting the cost, he thought, of the cores we burned, of the lives it'll take to end this. The plan was brittle as old glass. Infiltrate the stronghold, plant the shard in Vorik's blood coal reactor, and let the chain reaction rip the Empire apart at its seams. Seris had torn the schematics from memory, her hands steady even as her voice frayed. The reactor's here, beneath the mines. Guards patrol in shifts of 6. You'll need, he'd corrected. She'd gone quiet then, her eyes narrowing like she'd bitten into something sour. Now as the sun dipped below the horizon, staining the sky the color of a fresh bruise, she folded the parchment and slid it into her boot. The guard changes at nightfall. We move then. Taryn's fingers brushed the rifle at his side, its barrel still warm from the salt flat skirmishes. He wondered if his brother had felt the same gnawing hollowness before charging Vorik's outposts. The certainty of death, the itch of unfinished business. Someone's got to fight, the ghost insisted. But the boy in the copper crown was long gone. All that remained was the ache. They slipped into the stronghold through a sewage grate, the air thick with the reek of scorched oil and human sweat. The tunnels were lit by flickering bioluminescent fungi, their glow leaching the color from Seris's face. She moved like a wraith, her boots silent on the damp stone, but Taryn felt every step like a hammer fall. The fusion shard pulsed against his thigh, a star begging to be born. Voices echoed ahead. Seris pressed herself into a shadowed alcove, her hand darting out to pull Taryn close. Two guards lumbered past, their faces obscured by respirators, their belts clattering with bone-handled knives. One paused, sniffing the air. "Smell that. Smells like your ma's cooking." Laughter bounced off the walls, fading as the guards turned the corner. Seris exhaled sharply, her grip on Taryn's arm lingering a heartbeat too long. The reactor chamber was a gutted cathedral, its vaulted ceiling strung with chains and dripping condensate. Vorik's pride, a massive generator fed by blood coal mined from prisoners, thrummed at the center, its pistons heaving like the lungs of a beast. Seris froze in the doorway, her mask reflecting the machine's malignant glow. "I designed this," she whispered, not to him, but to the ghosts in the gears. "I thought it'd power hospitals, farms." Taryn followed her gaze to the catwalks above, where skeletal figures shuffled in shackles, dumping coal into the reactor's maw. A child no older than 10 dragged a cart, its wheels screeching. "You didn't know?" "I didn't ask." Her voice splintered. She unslung her pack, withdrawing the fusion shard. "The overload will take 90 seconds. We'll need to trigger the evacuation alarms first. Get the prisoners out." He caught her wrist. "We?" Her eyes hardened. "You handle the alarms. I'll plant the shard." "Bullshit. You're just buying a pyre. And you're not." She wrenched free, the shard's light fracturing in her irises. "This is my penance, Taryn. Let me have it." He wanted to argue, to drag her back into the wastes, and let Vorik's empire crumble on its own. But the child on the catwalk met his gaze, hollow and hopeful, and he knew the choice had been made long before this moment. The alarms were rusted livers in a control room thick with mold. Taryn pulled them all, the klaxon's wail cutting through the stronghold's hum. Chaos erupted, guards shouting, prisoners scrambling. He pictured Seris in the reactor's heart, her hands steady as she wedged the shard into the machine's veins. 90 seconds. He was halfway to the rendezvous point when the shot rang out. Seris staggered into the corridor, her left side blooming crimson. Vorik followed, a pistol in one hand, and a jagged grin on his face. His armor was a patchwork of scrap metal and pride, his eyes 2 chips of obsidian. "Did you think I'd forget your fingerprints, little moth?" he crooned, circling Seris as she slumped against the wall. "You built this hive, now you'll die in it." Taryn moved without thinking, his rifle cracked, the bullet ricocheting off Vorik's pauldron. The warlord turned, snarling, but Seris lunged, driving her dagger into his thigh. Vorik backhanded her, her mask splintering as she fell. 50 seconds. Taryn tackled Vorik, their struggle a blur of fists and fury. The warlord's knife grazed his ribs. His own fists found flesh, bone, the satisfying crunch of a broken nose. Somewhere, the reactor's hum climbed to a scream. 30. Seris crawled toward the shard, her blood smearing the floor. Vorik seized her ankle, yanking her back. Taryn slammed a wrench into his temple, the warlord's grip loosening. 10. Go. Seris gasped, clutching the shard.
Now, he hauled her up, half dragging her through the buckling corridors. The explosion tore through the stronghold, a roar like the earth splitting. Heat licked their backs, the walls melting into slag. They burst into the wastes as the reactor's core ignited, the sky splitting open with light. Dawn found them miles from the stronghold's corpse, the rig shuddering as it devoured the last of its fuel. Seris lay in the cargo bed, her breath shallow but steady. The shards burned now a scar on her palm. Taryn watched the horizon, where plumes of smoke stained the sunrise. The water mines, she murmured. They'll need engineers to rebuild. He handed her the canteen, their fingers brushing. They'll need leaders too. She studied him, her face bare without the mask, raw and unguarded. You'd make a shitty martyr, and you're a terrible liar. He nodded to the fusion scar. You rigged the shard to give us time. You never meant to die. A faint smirk tugged her lips. Would you have followed me if I did? The rig crested a dune, the stronghold's ruins now a smudge on the horizon. Ahead, the faint glint of solar mirrors marked the nearest settlement, a fledgling town built on brothers' bones and borrowed time. Seris sat up, wincing, and tossed him a screwdriver. Next time, you play bait. He caught it, the weight familiar, and gunned the engine. The wind shifted, carrying the tang of rain.